Today we'll be going over 16 tips that will help you improve your experience in the parks during your trip. Hello and welcome to the Let's Go to Disney podcast. I'm your host Oliver. Today is Sunday, February 11th, and you're listening to episode 22, 16 tips for navigating the parks. Lucy is back on the show today to talk Disney tips with us.
Hey everyone, I'm really hoping that these tips can help you make the best of your Disney vacation.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we get into today's main topic, here's what's going on in the parks right now. Disney had its first quarter earnings call this week, and they made some exciting announcements among other news. CEO Bob Iger indicated that all parks, including their international destinations, were all profitable this quarter. He further indicated that all parks will be receiving new expansions or experiences, with billions being invested in the parks in the coming years. Moana 2 is on the horizon and is currently set for a November 2024 release. Other movies that will be coming are another Frozen sequel, a Toy Story sequel, and a Star Wars movie with The Mandalorian, although these projected dates are further in the future. Taylor Swift's hugely popular Eras Tour movie will be released on Disney Plus on March 15th, and it will include songs that weren't in the theatrical release. Good news for Disney Plus. Typhoon Lagoon will be reopening on March 17, and Blizzard Beach will, you guessed it, be closing for refurbishment. Disney is continuing its open and closure park swap between their two water parks for the time being. On February 8th, Disney Parks blog announced that the hugely popular 1900 Park Fare restaurant will be reopening at the Grand Floridian. This character dining experience had remained closed since the pandemic closures, but it is finally reopening on April 10th. Disney announced guest favorites will be returning along with a refurbished dining room. Characters will include Aladdin in his Prince Ali outfit, Cinderella, Mirabelle, and Tiana in her Tiana's Bayou Adventure look. The meal will be buffet for both breakfast and dinner, with returning favorites like the strawberry soup, along with new and exciting offerings. Reservations open on March 5th. We just might have to make reservations here at our upcoming trip.
I think we might have to, I agree.
Flower and Garden kicks off at the end of the month, waiting on pins and needles for that foodie guide, and we'll provide you with an update as soon as it's released. With that said, let's get into today's main topic. So you've done a great job planning your trip, you researched, made spreadsheets, booked accommodations, tickets, dinings, extras, and everything else in between. And you're arriving onto Walt Disney World property, and all your hard work is about to pay off. Before I say anything else, it's important for you to enjoy this time. There's a lot of time, effort, and money poured into these vacations, so try to enjoy the moment. Think about where you are and do your best to immerse yourself in the atmosphere. This, in my opinion, is what sets Disney apart. Their ability to immerse you in the magic that's just in the air. Quick history recap. When Walt Disney was purchasing the land to build Walt Disney World, he did so wanting the new space to have separation and autonomy from the outside world, to literally have you step out of your day-to-day worries and enjoy the magic. Anaheim grew and sprawled around Disneyland. Land was expensive and room for expansion quickly evaporated. He didn't want this roadblock in Florida, so he purchased a massive area, and the parks and infrastructure were built away from everything else. That's the reason you can't park at Magic Kingdom. He didn't want a parking lot outside the gates of Magic Kingdom. You have to take a boat or monorail from the TTC to get to Magic Kingdom, and man, oh man, is that an experience. So again, think about where you are. Enjoy the moment. I'm a big Walt Disney fan, like the man himself, the individual, and a history buff when it comes to his story. Maybe one day I'll make an episode on the history of the parks. Let me know if that's something you guys would want to hear.
I think it's a great idea, actually, because everybody likes a little history.
Yeah, absolutely. And Walt Disney had an amazing story. You know, it's the classic American story of starting with nothing and building something.
Yeah, rags to riches for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Without further ado, today we'll be going over some tips to help you improve your experience around the resort and the parks. If you've done a good job organizing and planning your itineraries, this should give you a good starting point as to how you'll organize your days. Planning the trip is a huge piece of the overall vacation puzzle, but navigating the parks when you're physically there is also important, and it's good to put some thought into that as well.
Absolutely. So let's kick things off with tip number one. Tip number one, Walt Disney World Resort is big, like massive. We touched on this last week with our tips to plan your vacation, but it will become painfully obvious to you when you arrive on the property. There is a decent distance between the parks, aside from Epcot and Hollywood Studios that are reasonably close. Magic Kingdom and Animal Kingdom are off on their own, and Disney Springs is also off on its own. Each of the parks have resorts that are close that also have a lot to offer, so that's something to consider as well. Like the Magic Kingdom area resorts have Contemporary, which houses Chef Mickey's, Steakhouse 71, and California Grill. The Polynesian has Ohana's, Pineapple Lanai, and Kona Cafe, Tambu Lounge, where you can get some menu items from Ohana, and the hugely popular and hard to get into Trader Sam's. The Grand Floridian has Citricos, Narcoossee's, Enchanted Rose, very soon 1900 Park Fair, which will be reopening like we said, atrociously expensive Victoria and Albert's, just to name a few. And Epcot area resorts also have a ton of dining options and are all walking distance from Epcot's International Gateway entrance. Between all the resorts, the 4 parks, Disney Springs, the Walt Disney Resort is expansive, and there's honestly so much to do and see, so it's important to prioritize what you want to see on your trip and what you're okay with missing or committing to seeing on a subsequent trip, because it's just simply not possible to do it all. You can do a lot, that's for sure, but not all.
Yeah, absolutely. Like we said in our last episode, and like we're saying now, it's huge, right? There's so much to do, so much to see. You're not going to be able to see it all in one trip. So just manage your expectations when it comes to that. Having said that, if you're there for, a long weekend or a week, you will get a lot done. There's no doubt about that. You can fill up your days and you can certainly see a lot and do a lot, but know that there's plenty left to come back for subsequent trips. We've been there multiple times and we're still finding new things to experience every time.
Absolutely.
And there's always stuff reopening or stuff closing with new things taking its place. Really, Disney is always evolving.
Absolutely. I completely agree.
Number 2, know how to get around. So again, we touched on this last week, but it's important to have a plan as to how you're going to get around and how you're going to get to where it is you're trying to get to. If you're driving everywhere, it can be pretty simple. You drive and park at the park you're visiting, except for Magic Kingdom, where you have to park at the TTC and take the monorail or boat, like we said. If you're staying on property, you'll have different options depending on where you're staying. Are you connected only by bus to the parks? Is there Skyliner or monorail access? Boat access? Be aware of what transportation options are available to you depending on where you are on property. And of course, anyone can use Walt Disney World transportation, okay? So you don't have to be a resort guest. Take advantage of taking the Skyliner from Epcot to Hollywood Studios or the Friendship boats, or walk if you're so inclined.
Absolutely.
We have a full episode where we break down transportation in detail. So if you want to learn more, definitely check that out.
Number 3, if you qualify for early entry, do it. If not, still go early. So we can't emphasize this enough. Rope drop has definitely gained popularity in recent years. And with the rise of social media, I think it's more prominent than ever. But crowds will still be lower in the early mornings, and the peak of the crowds won't be there until probably mid-morning. So if you're staying on property, you qualify for early entry, and you should definitely take advantage of the perk. If you play your cards right, you can get 2 or more rides done within the first half hour when the parks are only open to resort guests. And even when the parks officially open, you still have about an hour or so before the parks get really busy. This is tried and true. We have tested this many times.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're really not overstating that. Like, don't get me wrong. A lot of people go to rope drop when you're at the park early in the morning. You're going to feel it. There's a lot of people around. There's a lot of anticipation. Yeah. If you're there around 7 a.m., everyone's on their phone trying to snag everyone's trying to snag their lightning lanes or their virtual queues or whatnot. So you can feel that there's people there, but don't forget, all those people are resort guests. So while it does seem like a lot of people initially because you're all in the same area, once everybody kind of spreads out, it's definitely not as bad, especially when the rest of the park opens. Yep. Everybody's kind of spread out, so it's not as busy. Like if the park opens at 8 o'clock, for example, and you have early entry at 7:30, it's not going to start getting like really, really busy until like 10, 10:30, even maybe 11, depending on the day.
Absolutely. We have witnessed this many times. And if you're not staying on resort, it is still 100% worth it to get there for opening. You'll still beat most of the crowds, and you're going to be able to enter every park early except for Hollywood Studios. There isn't much to do at the parks aside from Magic Kingdom, where you have access to Main Street until the park officially opens, but you'll be ready to go when the park does open. Special caveat for Magic Kingdom is that only Fantasyland and Tomorrowland open for early entry. So if you're there early for a rope drop, you will have access to Adventureland and Frontierland at the same time as everybody else. So it's definitely worth your time.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people will ask that, if I'm not staying on property, is it really worth going early? And the answer is yes, because like we said, even when the park officially opens for everyone, it's going to be busy, but not as busy as mid-morning when the crowds really start to arrive.
Yeah, you're going to get that primo camera shot of the castle behind you with not very many people behind you as well. So it's perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're there for rope drop like first thing and you're kind of near the front, that's some of the best time to grab your photo of the castle because there's literally no one around.
Yeah, very true.
If you can stop quickly before you head to Tomorrowland or Fantasyland, I definitely recommend that. Number 4, park bag essentials. Okay, so this is definitely subjective. The reason I say this is because if you're a family with kids under a certain age, you'll need to prioritize bringing different things than if you're an adult couple traveling solo.
Yeah,
right?
I completely agree with this. We have seen many different families and different groups that are at Disney, and you can tell the families with kids, they've got the wagon with them, they've got the diaper bags, they've got the 3 backpacks. So yeah, this is all depending on who you're traveling with.
Yeah, absolutely, right? They'll have those big double strollers that you can rent, or people bring in their own strollers, which essentially gathers a bunch of stuff. It's essentially like a storage unit on
nice,
the fly.
actually.
Yeah.
Buy something, throw it in the bottom of the stroller.
Exactly, right? Or you can have your littles take a nap if they're really young, right?
We've seen that a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely something to keep in mind there, right? Having said that, here's a few things that should be in every park bag, regardless of the makeup and age of the travelers. Okay, so super important, a battery pack.
Yes.
I'm partial to the Anchor battery packs. Those are the ones that we have. They're slim and they're similar in size to your smartphone. I use a 6-inch USB to USB-C cable and I lay them flat together in my pocket when I'm running low on battery.
Yeah.
Even if your phone is newer and your battery usually lasts you easily a day or more, you're going to be on your phone a lot, booking lightning lanes, refreshing, ordering food, scanning into rides, if that's what you're using. Okay, so long story short, you don't want your battery dying in the park, so a battery charger is life-saving in my opinion.
I agree. They do have a couple of those. They're kind of like dispensaries that you can get chargers for, but you're going to pay an arm and a leg for it. So if you can bring your own, it's definitely worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are called fuel rods.
Yes.
And essentially it's like a vending machine where you purchase, your initial purchase is $30 and then you can switch them out for a fresh one, but they're not the best quality.
No. They will help you in a pinch, but if you can bring your own.
But that's the thing, if like you can order better quality ones, in my opinion, for a very similar price on Amazon before your trip, and then you can reuse it over and over and over again for subsequent trips, or even when you're out and about, like if you're in a long day shopping or whatever, you can find a use for it anywhere.
Once you get back to your hotel, you just charge them for the night, you're good to go again.
Yeah, exactly. Another thing to consider is you can find outlets or USB ports in the parks or in certain quick service locations. So that's an option as well. But of course, you're then stranded to that location when you're charging. So I personally like the flexibility of charging on the go. Next up, something to keep you dry. So it could be a poncho, a rain jacket, or an umbrella. Okay, so there's a good chance that it'll rain at some point during your trip. That's almost certain. If not every day, especially in the summer months and afternoons. Okay, like when it's hot in the parks, when it's hot and humid in Florida, which is like basically everything between May and October, there's often afternoon showers.
Absolutely. And they do come in handy too if you end up on one of those water rides and don't feel like getting completely drenched.
Yep, absolutely. So essentially what it boils down to is being ready for rain instead of hoping you won't get it. Okay, that's definitely the lesser of two evils.
Yes, I agree.
We personally like ponchos. They fold up nice and small. So that's personally what we bring to the parks.
Yeah, Disney does sell ponchos, but you're going to pay a good penny for them.
Yeah, I think they're like $12 or something like that.
Yeah, so we suggest bringing your own if you can.
Yeah, absolutely. Next up, water bottle. Okay, so people will often complain that the tap water at Walt Disney World has a funny taste, okay, which I don't disagree with. It kind of does taste funky.
I agree.
But having said that, it's free, so there's that.
Yeah. It's not very cold either, depending on where you're getting it from.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The Florida sun is super hot, but so you need to stay hydrated, okay? So water bottles are super expensive in the parks, so it's definitely a good idea to bring refillable water bottles like I'm saying. So there are water bottle refill stations interspersed throughout the parks. You'll find them in newer areas like Galaxy's Edge and the queue for Flight of Passage. Some people bring powdered flavor packets like those Crystal Light or something similar to mix with their water to kind of improve the taste. So that's an option if that's what you would like to do. We bring collapsible water bottles that fold nice and small. We fill them up at our resort the night before, usually drink them on the way to the parks in the morning, and then we refill them as we need as the day goes on. Next up, hand sanitizer. Okay, so for obvious reasons, you'll touch a lot of surfaces and high touch points, and you're going to be around hundreds, if not thousands of people in close proximity. So at the risk of going dad mode on you guys, don't touch your face or your mouth and nose before you've had a chance to sanitize.
Yep. You are going to interact with a lot of germs at Disney. You're probably not even going to realize it all the time, but the amount of things you touch there is insane.
Yeah, 100%.
And I don't think I even paid attention to it as much as since the pandemic. And now I'm just like, oh no, God.
Yeah, exactly. Just hyper aware of it now. And like we're adults, right? So we know like not to touch everything and touch your face. But when we go with our kids, despite how many times we tell them they touch everything, right? Like the chains and the queues and, you know,
they put their hands on their faces.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Or they go and grab some food. Oh gosh.
Right. So
stop.
we have several bottles of that in our park bag when we go, especially when we're with the kids.
Yeah, a must.
And on that same kind of note, also consider Lysol or Clorox wipes or something similar. So we like to use these to wipe down counter service tables in a situation where you're taking over a table for a family that just left before the cast members have had a chance to clean it up. Okay, so that's a nice use case for them. Also, if you're in a toilet that's not super clean.
Which is very rare. Disney Disney is extremely good at cleaning
for the
their
most part,
toilets,
they're really good. But it does happen, right? The parks are busy. Those washrooms get used a lot. So you can use that wipe to kind of wipe down the toilet if you wish to do that as well. We'd like to have those on hand for cases such as that.
Agreed.
Over-the-counter meds or prescription meds if necessary, obviously. But broadly speaking, it's a good idea to have like Tylenol or Advil in case anyone develops any aches, pains, or headaches or anything like that. Our son has motion sickness sometimes, so we have gravel on hand for him at all times when we're in the parks.
Yeah, he usually pops one at the beginning of the day, and then he's never been sick on a ride so far. And I think if he didn't have the gravel, he would be sick.
Yeah, 100%. We don't dare not to try it because
we're just going to continue with it.
Yeah, exactly. And on that same note, it's a good idea to have Band-Aids. So in case your shoes rub in a certain area that are starting to cause blisters. Okay, so even if you're diligent in buying good shoes and breaking them in, you've done a good job. It's possible that you'll still have issues once you've walked like 25,000 steps a few days in a row. Moleskin is also good for this as well, but note that you usually have to cut those. They come in sheets and they have to be cut to size. Yeah.
I have used many a Band-Aid because no matter what, I always seem to get a blister, and just layering a couple Band-Aids on there, perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. Plastic bags or Ziplocs. So these are lifesavers. So they can be used for lots of things like storing snacks, wet clothes like socks, a toy that's leaking. So think those bubble wands that you should definitely avoid because they always leak.
Don't buy them.
Yeah, exactly. They're definitely handy to have on hand. Lastly, another layer. Okay, so this doesn't always apply. Obviously, when it's 100 degrees out and not much cooler in the evening, like August, right? You don't need to worry about it so much. But a good example of this is we were there just after Thanksgiving this past year, and it was like 40 degrees one day. It was freezing. We had multiple layers on around the world showcase, freezing our hands off, eating a tostada.
The wind was strong. Yeah, it was cold.
Yeah, 100%. So it's definitely not always warm down there. So if you're coming from somewhere that's legit cold, it still gets cold there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We learned that.
Yeah, 100%. So pack smart. So that was a long point, okay? But honestly, I could probably do a whole episode for you guys just with park essentials. So it's basically a good thing for you guys just to kind of have an idea of what you should bring into the parks as a base, right? Everyone has different needs, but these are a good starting point for most park bags.
Sunscreen as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Good point. 100%. Sunscreen should be.
Sunscreen.
Yeah. The big Florida sun.
You don't realize how much you stand in the sun sometimes until you're a Red Lobster the next day.
Yeah, 100%. Having said that, it's also important not to overpack either. Okay, so know that the parks have care centers where you can find single dose over-the-counter meds and Band-Aids and similar items if you forgot them or didn't bring them and you're in need.
Absolutely. So number 5, magic bands are a time saver and a lifesaver. So are magic bands necessary? Absolutely not. You can have a physical ticket that looks like a credit card. You can use your phone or even your Apple Watch. You don't have to spend a single cent to use ticket features offered by magic bands. But having said that, they are so convenient that we wouldn't go into the parks without them. It's just set and forget. You can open your room if you're at a Disney resort, make charges back to your room, scan into the parks, scan into lightning lanes, which may not sound like much, but accessing your app or your Apple Wallet and cycling through everyone's tickets is slow and cumbersome. It's just sleek and quick, and it's a no-brainer for us. We all have magic bands, and we can scan into the parks and lightning lanes all at the same time. And the kids are actually getting really good at using theirs. The first time we were all a bit nervous because you had to do the fingerprint, but they're completely Disney kids now, which is awesome.
Yeah, 100%. We used our finger for their fingerprint.
That's right, we did.
Just to make it a little bit faster. Right. But I suspect we'll be able to maybe arrange their own finger going forward. I don't think it matters too much.
I don't think it matters, but yeah,
they're pros at using their magic band. They get it now.
They know exactly what to do. We don't even have to tell them anymore. But having said that, magic bands are really expensive, usually $34.99 or more, depending on the design, really. So if you're a resort guest and you can order them for a discount ahead of your trip, but note, this is no longer a feature available for international guests. If you're coming from outside of the US, you used to be able to have them shipped to your resort and they'd be waiting for you, but now you have to buy them on property for full price. On that same note, they are not cheap if you're purchasing for a family of 4. It's $100 or even more.
Yep. It's definitely an added expense that not everybody factors in, but these things aren't cheap, right? Especially if you're purchasing on property. You get, I think it's a $10 discount if you can buy them ahead. So if you're a US resident, you can have them shipped to the house, right? So that's definitely super convenient. But if you're coming, from Canada, the UK, Australia, or wherever you're coming from, that's no longer an option. You can't have them shipped to your resort like they used to do.
Yes. So if this is your first and only trip and you don't plan on returning for a long time, or if ever, it's probably not necessary given the cost. But if you plan on going back again in the nearest future, or you go every year or every other year, it's kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Like the convenience can be overstated. I think it's a fairly low cost, especially if you're going to use it. Like the new Magic Band Plus that they released a couple years ago, or like maybe not even that long ago, you can recharge them. They come with a little charging port and USB, and you can plug it into any USB port or like charging bank, and you can charge them at night. That's what we do. We have like
every night,
like a USB bank of like 4, and we just plug them all in and we charge our Magic Bands and they're ready to go for the next day.
Yeah, it's quite the setup.
Yeah, 100%. And then it's kind of exciting because on subsequent trips, we have our Magic Bands, we put them in our carry-on so that when we get to Florida, we put them on so that we can access our
start
room.
of the trip.
Yeah, exactly. It's signaling that we're back home.
Yes.
Number 6 is rider switch. So not everyone knows about this, but it's a really handy service that Disney offers to make it easier on families with children who are too short to ride certain attractions, or if you just have people in your party that are averse to certain rides. It works like this. Say you have a family of 4 with 2 adults and 2 kids, and one child is too short to ride Space Mountain, for example. The whole party goes to the cast members at the entrance to the attraction. One adult will stay with a non-rider, and they'll be issued a ride switch entitlement. These guests are party 2. The others, let's call them party 1, will go in the standby queue and ride the attraction. When they exit, the adult in party 2 then goes to ride the attraction, but they enter the lightning lane so they don't have to wait all the way through the standby queue a second time. Now, if the adult in party 2 waited alone, so meaning it was, let's say it was dad in this example with a non-rider, they can send another person to ride with that person. So this older child, for example, in this example, could go ride with dad with the second party. Now, your mileage may vary on this next point, but if you have, let's say like a family of 5 or 6 and somebody stayed with somebody who didn't want to ride and the other 3 or 4 went to ride, they'll let basically all but one go in. Okay, so cast members are not obligated to do this, but oftentimes they will do it just to accommodate families, right? Cast members, believe it or not, are in the business of making your vacation magical. Okay, so again, don't expect it. Don't want to be like an entitled guest. That's not what I'm saying. No. But just ask, right? The worst they'll say is no, and oftentimes they'll even offer it, right? So just
that's very true.
Yeah, something to keep in mind there.
Absolutely. Number 7, water. We touched on refillable bottles earlier, and it should definitely be a staple in your park bag. But having said that, there are other ways to get free water in the parks. Lots of quick service locations will provide ice water on demand across the parks. You don't need to buy anything for this either. They'll oftentimes have ice water cups ready to go, and you just walk up to the counter and ask, and they'll give them to you. Usually they're small cups, but that doesn't really matter. They'll give you more than one if you need it. They will also sometimes give you a small cup that you can fill with water at the soda fountain stations. And if you're grabbing food at quick service, then definitely ask for water. There are other places around the park where you can grab water as well. So actually, one of our favorite places right now is Casey's Corner, which is a quick service location on the left at the very end of Main Street when you're facing the castle. And just outside of there, there's several large brown water coolers filled with extremely cold water. And they have tons of small cups stacked right beside the coolers. So you can walk up, basically have as many cups as you want. There's nobody monitoring it. It's nice and cold. It's super refreshing. We just located this the last time we were there, I do believe.
Yep.
And what a find. We hit it up a few times.
Yeah, 100%. I'm embarrassed to say that we didn't know about this sooner because you literally, if you've walked down Main Street, you've walked by it. It's literally that painfully obvious. It's literally right in front of the restaurant itself. It's on the outside. Like, it's not inside. It's literally outside by those standing tables. And yeah, like Lucy said, just big brown coolers, like hundreds of cups stacked beside him, ice cold water. If you're thirsty, that's the perfect place to stop. We usually stop, grab a cup, fill it 2-3 times, get hydrated, and then we move on. Yeah. And it's, like Lucy said, it's our favorite right now because it's kind of central, right? So it's not like all the way down Main Street, right? It's right at the front, basically right at the hub. So if you're coming from Adventureland, for example, and you're walking to Tomorrowland, stop for a quick drink, and then you keep going with your day. So super, super convenient. Definitely a go-to for us.
Yes.
But having said that, like Lucy said, any quick service location, okay? So it doesn't matter, Cosmic Rays, Flame Tree Barbecue, any of them, whatever park you're in,
Sleepy
ABC
Hollows,
Commissary, 100%. Like, you just ask for a cup of ice cold water and they'll give it to you. Number 8, use mobile order. Okay, so you've heard us say this before, but it's still underutilized. So I think it's important to highlight. Okay, so many quick service and snack locations across the parks and Disney Springs offer mobile order, and you should 100% be using mobile order. Okay, so from the My Disney Experience app, you can select the location, pick the menu items you want to order, pay right there in the app, and pick it up when your return window opens. The most popular places to eat will sometimes have their times booked for mobile order for like several hours in advance. Okay, so something to be mindful of there. The example I always give for this is Woody's Lunchbox in Toy Story Land. Okay, so by far one of the most popular quick service locations in all of Disney World.
I would agree.
It's always busy there.
They do like breakfast time too and stuff like that.
Yeah,
so
they have
like,
breakfast tachos, which is essentially like potato barrels with eggs on top. Yeah,
people when they're ready for that first meal, that's usually where they'll go.
Yeah, 100%. So if it's a busy park day and it's like 10 o'clock, it's a good idea to start thinking about lunch there. Even like I'm not saying you're going to go eat at that time, but it's good to book your time like 11:30, noon, whatever it is. Pick what you're going to order. And then when you're ready to eat, you go back to Woody's Lunchbox. You click, I'm here, prepare my order. It's going to give you the return window and give you a push notification when your order is ready. And you just go pick it up. It's literally that easy.
Super easy.
What the bonkers part is that we still see people waiting in like super long lines.
Yeah.
Like, and the perfect example is Sleepy Hollow. We experienced this on our last trip. So it was pretty busy, but there was immediate return times. Like if you went on mobile order to order like your whatever it is that you're ordering, there was times available now. So people are waiting in literally like a 15-minute line instead of ordering and just picking up like live moment, right? So,
and it's funny because they're standing in line on their phones.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, exactly. You're probably scrolling Instagram or whatever it is they're doing, picking lightning lanes. Hey, I get it. I'm not judging.
No.
But while you're doing that,
order some food.
Yeah, exactly. Order your food and then you don't have to wait in that line, right?
Yeah.
So again, some people prefer to wait in line or they don't want to use their phone for that. And that's cool. We get it. But if you prefer to,
not wait in line.
Yeah. Or just
eat fast.
Yeah, exactly. Get in and get out. Then it's definitely by far your best bet.
Yes, I agree. Tip number 9. Order from the kids menu at quick service. So you wouldn't be able to order from the kids menu at a table service restaurant, but you absolutely can do this at quick service locations. No one is checking to see if there's a child with you to eat the kids meal. So if you're not really famished and you prefer a portion size of the child's menu, then order from the kids menu. We often do this actually, or we'll split a regular meal for 2 reasons. 1, it saves a lot of money and portions are generally pretty large. And 2, it leaves room to enjoy other things. We love snacking at Disney. So smaller portions for us work.
Yeah, 100%. If you're looking to save room and money, ordering from the kids menu is definitely a viable option and something you should definitely consider.
Yes.
A perfect example of this is the kids meal for those can't think of it right now. It's
cheeseburger pods?
Yes, the cheeseburger pods. You know exactly what I was thinking without even saying it. The cheeseburger pods at Satuli Canteen in Animal Kingdom.
Yeah.
The kids meal comes with 1 cheeseburger pod, but it still comes with those veggie chips. I think it comes with a mandarin orange, like a cutie orange.
And a cute little water bottle.
Yeah, and exactly a little water bottle.
But
having said that, if you're not super hungry or you don't want to stuff yourself because there's other snacks you want to try, it's the perfect amount.
I agree.
So definitely
gives you a taste of it without being full.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. Number 10, you can bring food and snacks in the parks. Okay, so this is a question I get asked a lot. Can I bring food in the parks? The answer is an emphatic yes. Okay. On the topic of saving money, you can definitely save huge amounts of money by bringing food in. Okay. So there's rules surrounding this. You can't bring a large cooler or loose ice in the parks, but you can bring a small cooler with ice packs. You can bring in sandwiches, granola bars, protein bars, fruits, veggies, crackers. You can definitely pack the food you'll need for your park day if you want to do that. If you have younger kids and you'll be bringing in a stroller, like we said earlier, that gives you nice storage for that as well. Plus, snacks on demand for younger kids is definitely a plus. So don't be afraid to do that. We totally get it.
Yeah, absolutely. You can also sit at any of the quick service places and with your brought in food, and nobody's going to give you a hard time about that.
Absolutely. Like you want to grab a table somewhere and, take out your sandwich, your PB&J or whatever and eat.
Times.
Yeah, absolutely. You can definitely do that.
Yeah. Tip number 11, you got to take breaks, especially in the afternoon. So it's completely depending on your personality. And if this is your once in a lifetime trip, this advice is going to be hard to follow. Oliver has a very hard time following this one.
100%. Yep.
When we first went to Disney, he was 100% a rope drop to fireworks person. Having said that, those are extremely long days, especially when we have our kids with us.
Yeah, 100%.
And if you're doing several of these days back to back, it is absolutely exhausting.
For sure. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. If you're with your littles, especially, this is pretty much near impossible, and your kids will 100% get cranky, moody, exhausted, everything in between if you push them too hard, because your kids are still kids at Disney.
100%. Yep.
So a midday break to go back to the resort, have a swim, some quiet time outside of the parks can really make a world of difference. And if you're not staying on a resort, you can still exit the park and go and visit one of the resorts for a late lunch. It might be just the thing you need to recharge your batteries, so you can always head back into the parks and finish up some shows or attractions or catch that nighttime spectacular you've been waiting to see.
Yep, absolutely. And failing that, if you're staying for longer than a long weekend, work in 1 or 2 rest days, okay? So where you can enjoy the amenities at your resort, visit Disney Springs, relax in between park days. It is a vacation after all, so make sure you're taking the time to relax. Again, I know that's hard for some people, me included. Okay, it's pretty much impossible for me, much to my wife's chagrin.
Yeah.
I've got one speed, especially when we're at Disney, and it's full tilt. Yeah, I want to go. I want to see it all. I want to do it all, even though I've seen it all and done it all multiple times over. No, I don't want to say that. I haven't done it all. I've done a lot. Yeah. And I've done it a lot of times over. Having said that, I have a hard time taking my foot off the gas when we're there.
He really does.
But on our last trip,
our kids help, though.
Yes, for sure. The kids help. And on our last trip, we did a lot of resort hopping and experienced some different things. So that was really good. Yeah.
That's pretty chill to do that stuff.
Yeah, 100%. It's fun. Number 12, single rider. Okay, so utilize single rider if you can. Certain attractions across the parks will offer single rider queues. This basically means that you'll fill into parties that don't fit the ride vehicle. So a perfect example of this is Test Track. They are 6-person ride vehicles. So if you have a family of 5, for example, they'll pull from that single rider queue to make 6 for the ride vehicle. A few caveats to this. Okay, so single rider does mean single rider. So even if you're with your party and you ask the cast members if you can ride together, they will say no. Okay, we witnessed this several times over several trips. On our most recent trip, actually, we had a father and son beg the cast member to let them ride together in the single rider line at Test Track, and the cast members just turned them away. Like, at the end of the day, it makes sense, right? The single rider line is intended for that purpose.
Yep. That father actually played the card. He can't ride by himself. Okay, too bad.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. It's if you can't ride by himself, then you have to get in the standby queue, right? You're not going to bypass everybody who's waiting in the standby queue to ride together, right? That defeats the purpose of the queue. So just if you're going to use it, just know that it's literally single rider. You will be split up from your party, but you can definitely save a lot of time that way. That's the plus of that, right? So, if you have like a 45-minute, an hour and 20-minute wait for that ride, the single rider queue is not going to be immediate, okay? So it's not like Lightning Lane. It can be a little bit of a wait, but it's certainly going to be less of a wait than the standby queue.
Yeah, agreed. Tip number 13, use a rideshare or minivan if you're in a hurry. So generally speaking, if you give yourself enough time to get around the Walt Disney World property, you shouldn't have to use anything other than the free Disney transportation. Getting to the parks and the resorts and park to park is pretty painless. It just takes some time. So don't expect to take a bus from Animal Kingdom to Park Hop to Magic Kingdom and that it only takes 5 minutes. That's not going to happen. You have to factor in the time to get from the park to the bus station area, wait for the bus, the travel time to the other park, walk from the bus station into the park. So generally speaking, it's good to give yourself about an hour, we would say.
Yeah, for sure.
When you're trying to get somewhere for a dining reservation, for example, that's probably really key for a dining reservation.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you're in a rush and you didn't leave yourself enough time or you're running behind, you can always take a rideshare to where you want to get to quickly. Minivans are also a rideshare booked via Lyft app, and they are cast members who you can't miss in the beautiful Disney vans.
Yeah, 100%. They're so cute.
Yeah, they are cute. Yeah. They're red all over with white polka dots. Basically a nod to Minnie Mouse, who we all love.
Yeah, exactly.
And they actually have car seats with cast members who are trained to install those car seats. So it's actually a really nice peace of mind when you're traveling with little kids. We used one the other time with our daughter.
Yep, absolutely. We took a minivan last time. We were there with the kids to get from the Poly to Wilderness Lodge for a reservation at Artist Point. There are no buses from resort to resort, so we could have done the monorail to Magic Kingdom and then a bus or a boat to Wilderness Lodge. Or we could have done the monorail to Contemporary and done a boat from Contemporary to Wilderness Lodge. Okay, so we had a couple different options, but it was pouring rain. We had been in the park all day and we just wanted to get there without any fuss. So we went on the Lyft app, ordered a minivan. They installed the car seats for the 2 littles and we made a reservation with lots of time. And it was really nice. They gave the kids stickers.
And they had a Disney movie playing on. Yeah, it was perfect.
100%. It was definitely worth the extra money. That's one thing I should mention. So Lyft and Uber, typically pretty cheap, right? Depending on surge pricing. But the Lyft app that has the minivans, you'll see like the minivans is always more expensive.
Of course.
Yeah. Number 14, resort hop. Okay, so fun thing to do on a day off or even as a break from the parks during a park day is go and visit some of the resorts around property. Okay, so some of the best restaurants on property are tucked away at the resort. So booking dining at a resort is always a fun thing to do. We love doing that.
Yeah.
Plus, if you've never been there, it's a good way to get a feel for the resort and decide if this is somewhere you'd like to stay in the future. So the first time we ate at Topolino's breakfast and we visited the Riviera, we immediately decided we got to stay here.
Yeah, the kids agreed. Yep. Everybody agreed.
Yeah, 100%, right? So it's a good way to do that, to kind of test the waters and see where you'd like to stay going forward.
And it's honestly so fun. Every resort is so beautiful, so well done. It's actually really exciting to walk into all of them and just see the architecture. It's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely, right? I love hopping on the monorail, checking out the resorts around there. I love getting on the Skyliner, checking out those resorts.
Yeah.
There's so many cool things to see and do around the resorts, Kay. They're really phenomenally themed and they have a lot to offer.
That's what we mean by you can't do it all.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. Number 15, PhotoPass photographers will take photos with your phone. Okay, so all across the parks, you'll see cast members, usually in lime green shirts with cameras. Depending where you are, they'll have themed outfits. Like, for example, in Galaxy's Edge, they're kind of dressed like Galaxy's Edge cast members.
But they have a big old camera.
Yeah, and they're usually in front of landmarks, right? So they'll always have a cast member like in front of the Millennium Falcon, right?
That's true, yeah.
So if you look for the landmarks, that's where you'll find them, okay? If you purchase PhotoPass, you can scan your Magic Banner ticket with this cast member and they'll take some fun photos and they'll be linked directly to your My Disney Experience app and away you go. But if you didn't purchase the service or you just want a photo with your phone, just ask the cast member and they will 100% take that photo, okay? Just hand them your device, your camera essentially, open to the settings you want, right? They won't fiddle through that for you, but they will snap the photo for you, okay? These are usually in prime locations, like I said, so definitely a good thing to consider for landmark photos like the Castle, Spaceship Earth, Tree of Life, or Tower of Terror, or the Grauman's Chinese Theater as well.
Lots of landmarks to take photos of.
Absolutely, yeah. And not just there, there's other places.
Absolutely.
But if you're going to do any, it's probably those ones are the good first ones.
Agreed. Tip number 16, do not rush out after the fireworks. So I'm using the word fireworks here, but it's true for any nighttime spectacular, whether that be at Epcot, Hollywood Studios, or Magic Kingdom. Animal Kingdom doesn't actually have a nighttime spectacular besides the projections on the Tree of Life, and that takes place when it's dark early enough in the winter months. But for all the other parks, generally speaking, the parks are open a touch later than the fireworks or Fantasmic. And even if they aren't, you won't be rushed out. So don't rush. Let the crowd clear out.
Yep, 100%.
We've done this many times. You're only going to be in a big sea of people to get into another long queue for whatever form of transportation you're trying to get home with. And at Magic Kingdom, we like to walk down Main Street, mobile order a snack from the confectionery, and just people watch. I love people watching.
Yeah, 100%. Yep.
Or even get some last minute shopping done. The shopping you didn't want to lug around all day. This is the perfect time to do this on your way out. But either way, if you're not in a rush, don't rush. Your evening is likely to end much more pleasantly this way.
Yeah, 100%. One of my favorite things to do is to pick up a cookie from the confectionery.
Yes.
Kind of sit on Main Street or at the hub there where the flag usually is, or the Christmas tree, right? And just sit down and watch the people leaving, right? It's just...
You never know if you'll see a celebrity.
Yeah, 100%. And of course, like this depends, right? If you have your kids and they're cranky and you just want to get home, like we get it, right?
We do.
But if you're not in a rush, or if your kids are sleeping in the stroller or whatever, by all means, don't rush. It's going to be much more pleasant going home.
Yeah, you won't miss that transportation. There's plenty of them.
Yeah, exactly. Now, this isn't an exhaustive tip list, right? So there's other things to consider, but it's a good starting point to make your life easier when you're navigating the parks. Okay?
Yes, absolutely.
Once you've done all the planning to make your trip possible, you have to do some planning to how you'll execute your park itinerary and strategy when you're actually there.
Yeah, absolutely. There's always going to be little hiccups along the way, but if you can just basically have a list going of priorities and all that stuff like that, it's going to go smooth.
Yep, 100%, right? As smooth as it can go. And you just be ready. Be ready for hiccups, right? Like
we get them every time. We've
said it before, right? Like you rope drop an attraction, like, Rise of the Resistance, and it's not open, right? There's some issues, then you have to pivot and go to something else.
And it's a terrible feeling when you're pivoting, but it usually all works out. Or you are thinking, we have time for one last ride before our dining reservation, and then the ride breaks down while you're on it. Happened to us twice.
Yep.
and then you are running for your reservation.
100%.
It all works out, though.
It happened to us on the Barnstormer before Cinderella's Royal Table, and for Space 220 when we were on Ten's track.
That's right. And both broke down. It was very crazy. We had to actually laugh the second time because we couldn't believe it was happening again.
And the second time, like the Space 220 time, we were quite a bit later. Like Cinderella's Royal Table, we were probably like 2-3 minutes.
If that,
and like obviously the cast members were super good about it. But like the Space 221, I was like probably like 17-18 minutes, and I sprinted from test track to Space 220 to be like, we're coming, hold our resi, and they were super good about it.
If you're nice to them, they'll be nice back.
100%. So with all that said, I want to thank you guys so much for joining us today to talk Disney park tips. So if you haven't already, you can find us on Instagram at letsgo.todisney for more tips and Disney fun. We're also on Facebook, so our page there is Let's Go to Disney, just generic spelling. Also, if you're not subscribed to the podcast, we'd sure appreciate if you took the time to do that. And if you can find the time to drop us a rating and a review, it would certainly be greatly appreciated. Okay, so it helps us reach more listeners. And that's why we started this podcast, right? Is to help people have great Disney vacations.
Absolutely. I agree. And with that being said, we hope you have a great day, and we'll see you real soon.